everyone, Andrew, otherwise known as WinDeckTech here on YouTube, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive overview on the Logitech G Cloud. We're going to be comparing it to other popular devices such as the Asus ROG Ally, Lenovo Legion Go, and just generally through streaming or playing games on your phone, and what that experience would be like versus this. Now, for the past week, I have been using this as my daily driver handheld, if you will, and really my only means of gaming. I've been using it in bed, I've been using it on the couch, I've been using it kind of basically everywhere. I mean, I'm not really gaming on it, obviously, because it's a handheld streaming device, but I've been gaming through my home network on my computer, and I've been testing out GeForce Now, Xbox game streaming, all that stuff. So we'll get into all that and find out why people are actually buying this device over a Steam Deck or ROG Ally, which people have been according to the reviews. Now, this is a sponsored overview from Logitech as a part of their Cloud Creator program. Now, as such, this isn't going to be a review because my morals are compromised, and I am now not unbiased, obviously, for having received the device and financial incentive. So as such, we will just be doing a daily driver, what's it like to use for a week. We'll find out what its pros, cons are, kind of its quirks and features, if you will. So let's get into it. Pricing out of the way for this, it's $300 US MSRP. However, there's reports on Reddit that its lowest price has been $250, and I'm sure you'll probably be able to find prices in between that, and it'll probably go lower than $250 over time, seeing as it's a bit of an older device now. Now, in Canada, it is registered for a $400 Canadian price tag directly through Logitech. However, in the US, you can get it through Best Buy, it seems. Now, through worldwide vendors, you're going to have to check with your local areas, your local retailers, and see if Logitech has a direct buy through their website through you, because I couldn't find an actual brick and mortar spot for this. It had to be directly through Logitech only, and that was confirmed through my North American rep for this. They weren't able to confirm every region, but they were able to find, like in UK, you could find it at Curry's or something like that. So pricing, it is more expensive than something like the Abxylute. However, it is a little bit more powerful, but that's not going to mean you're going to be playing games natively on here, such as like Fortnite or Call of Duty, like those popular kind of mobile games. Maybe sure you're going to be playing some lighter games natively, but 100% this is a streaming first handheld. So not even comparing this handheld to the Abxylute, which is a streaming handheld competitor directly for this, why don't we compare it to something like your phone? So this is the iPhone 16 Pro, whatever. It's got a 6.3 inch screen, I think, compared to the 7-inch screen found on the Logitech. Yes, this is 120 Hertz. Yes, this is OLED. Yes, this is dimmer. Yes, this is LCD. It's only 60 Hertz. But I'll show you a comparison here. Get a little bit closer. So here's the Logitech G Cloud. This is a 7-inch screen running Indiana Jones native 1080p with full path tracing through GeForce Now. This is the iPhone, whatever, 6.3 inch, running the Resident Evil 2 natively on the device, sure, but this is best case scenario of what you'll get for the aspect ratio of actually filling out the screen. Some games will do it, but not a lot, and especially if you're going to be arguing, okay, well, you can just stream all these games over onto your phone, it's going to be giving you black bars to the aspect ratio, and Logitech actually does give kind of like a little demonstration on their selling page regarding this. So you're going to be getting the full 16:9 aspect ratio for this, so there's going to be no black bars, you're going to get a full 7-inch image on your display. Now, with the iPhone, with it being best case scenario for the Resident Evil here, this will be best case what you'd be getting. Again, if you don't have a controller attachment or something like that, then you'd be using the touchscreen controls. So versus the GameSir, yes, I do find the GameSir more comfortable compared to the Logitech G Cloud, simply because it does have full-size analog sticks, and the analog sticks are actually Hall effects, so that's a very nice add-on. However, with my phone case and many phone cases, they don't really kind of go and attach through the USB ports. So with my phone case currently, I cannot use it unless I take off the phone case, which is just a laziness barrier, obviously, but I just don't feel like taking off my case every time I want to use this, whereas I can just kind of pull this out and use it whenever, wherever, and realize that it's going to be fully charged or kind of charged up, mostly because of the standby life and the decent battery life compared to my phone. This has a claimed 12 hours of battery life. My phone, you know, it probably could last a little bit or close to, but realistically, with all your messages and everything else you're going to be doing with the background of the phone, whereas this is just purely optimized for streaming, yeah, this is probably going to give you a lot better battery life than your phone and a controller add-on. So for the case of the streaming handheld or dedicated streamer, if you will, there is a valid kind of case there. You're not going to be getting 120 Hertz on this, like I mentioned previously, or OLED screens, but it is just a very comfortable, easy, friendly using device. You're going to be streaming games from GeForce Now, Steam Link, Xbox Game Pass, but with Xbox Game Pass, I personally didn't have a very good experience with that. Technically, it's still in beta, but they do heavily advertise it and it is technically one of their little partners or ones that they advertise through the little kind of bar at the bottom there. So having that as a negative experience isn't the greatest, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. GeForce Now is scary good. You're able to kind of tweak your settings. I did upgrade to the 4080 upgrade package so I could turn on path tracing, ray tracing, do all that stuff. And additionally, you're able to run it at like 4K or 1440p and then kind of downscale it to 1080p on the device. So you're able to get that extra performance out of that 4080, if you will, because you're not going to be able to push over 60 hertz. So you might as well just kind of get that highest fidelity that you're going to be getting from the original source that's going to be streamed to the handheld. So you're going to get a lot better image quality if you do upscale to like 1440 or 4K if you're able to with your subscription tiers, or even with your own like Steam Link home streaming setup as well. That will work as well if you're able to get the aspect ratio and everything compatible with that. Putting through the tech specs, we have a Snapdragon 720G octa-core CPU. It clocks up to 2.3 gigahertz. We have 64 gigabytes of onboard storage, which is expandable via SD card. We have a 7-inch 1080p 60Hz LCD IPS type display running at 16:9 with 450 nits brightness, and it is touch compatible. For audio, we have down-firing stereo speakers, which actually do sound pretty good. However, they would sound a lot better front firing. There is dual microphones, and as well there is a 3.5mm microphone headphone combo jack. It is running 5.1 Bluetooth with Qualcomm aptX-M adaptive support, which means it does have lower latency support versus regular old Bluetooth. However, your mileage may vary, and I do suggest always just being wired or having a dedicated wireless connection. Now, we do have dual band Wi-Fi 2.4 or 5 gigahertz, and it does run at 2x2, multiple in, multiple out. Now, battery, there is 23.1 watt hour on board, and it does have a claimed 12 hours of usage, which I would probably agree with, give or take, depending on your brightness and audio settings. Now, the OS is running Android 11, so this is a mobile operating system with the Google mobile services. So yes, you do have proper access to YouTube, Play Store, Chrome, and everything else. It is bundled in with the Logitech launcher, so this kind of cuts out some of the background processes and runs it into a lower kind of process state in their own little mobile controller oriented flavor. So talking about ergonomics, I would say it's more comfortable than something like the Abxylute. There's a bit more girth to the handles, and the sticks are a little bit taller than them, and they have a bigger dome, I would say, so it's a little bit easier to be more precise. Shoulders are nice and clicky, the triggers have very good tension, and the size is very comfortable for when you're kind of doing the grip around. Again, the girth on it is just perfect. The only thing I would complain with the USB port and the audio jack is I wish it was on the top, because usually if you're playing with your lap or something, you're going to be putting pressure on the USB port and subsequently the cord as well, and there's going to be potential for failure there more so than if it was on the top, because usually you're not going to be putting that much pressure on the top. If there was ports on both bottom and top, that complaint wouldn't be necessary, but if there's really going to be one port on handheld, I should say it would be on the top. It would be better, especially if you're going to be docking it or something like this. Thankfully, you don't need to worry about any ventilation system when you're docking, so you can just kind of throw it however and plug it in at the bottom if you want to. But again, it's just a little personal nitpick of mine. So the sticks are very comfortable. The buttons are very nice. The D-pad has really no wobble effect or anything like that when you're kind of wobbling back and forth through the bottom. Start and select feel nice. The home buttons and everything, no complaints there. They're not going to be your main kind of push buttons, the start, select, all that. So I don't really put too much weight into those, but they do feel nice. The one thing I really do appreciate though is the spring-loaded little power toggle here. So there's going to be no chance for accidental power-ons when you throw it in your bag or kind of a case or something like that. Again, you're not going to be overheating the device if it's thrown into a bag and turned on with the screen on, but you're going to kill your battery life, and that would suck if you pull it out when you want a game and your battery's dead because the screen was on the whole time. So it's just a very nice, thoughtful touch, and something that other handheld manufacturers should actually probably look into if they're not going to be incorporating something like a fingerprint scanner like the ROG Ally into their handheld. If you did like a nice little kind of spring toggle switch like that where you had to maybe hold it down for like half a second, maybe a second, and then it would turn on, or you can set the timing how long you have to hold it on to do a sleep or wake feature. That would be a lot better probably than a power button that you would potentially hit in your bag all the time. Before thinking about buying the Logitech G Cloud or any other kind of streaming handheld, make sure that your home internet is up to the task. So that would be making sure that you have more access points, reliable 5 gigahertz connection throughout the home, or at least in the main points that you're going to be playing and streaming. As well, you're going to want to make sure that your console or PC is a direct wired connection, and then when you're streaming that you do have a 5 GHz connection to the client device. So that could also mean potentially putting in those little like pluggable kind of mesh devices that will expand through their own ecosystem. Sometimes those work. Typically the internet service provider ones are crap, and they basically prey on the fact that yes, it's going to be a weak router, and then you're going to want to buy in more to their ecosystem that they provide you at an upcharge, and it's still not even going to be that great. Take even a half amount of what it would cost, or the G Cloud, or like a good condition controller, something like that, and buy a router that's actually a little bit better. Put your internet provider modem into bridge mode, then just use that. So you're going to probably get better penetration power on the 5 GHz connection, so you'll be more stable, and you're going to be able to maintain that 100 megabit per second connection a lot easier, which is probably my personal recommendation if you're going to use GeForce Now or something like that. If you're using in-home streaming like Steam Link, you won't really need to rely on your internet connection coming in. Just ensure that your home network connection is actually sound, again with the hardwire connection for the PC or console. Right out of the gate, I do have a personal bias against game streaming services and what it kind of looks like for the future of gaming. Personally, I would rather be playing the games on local hardware, but as a home streaming device, I kind of get it at times, and when it's working well, at least with GeForce Now is what I mainly was using, but I did dabble with all the other ones. It just really did provide a seamless experience most of the time, and most of the time it was actually enjoyable. I wasn't able to play like Call of Duty or anything like that on it. The latency was just too bad for that. But playing something like a racing game offline like Forza or something along those lines, or even just adventure games or Cyberpunk, something like that that's slower paced, not as Twitch shootery, it's actually a really good time when the connection is great and when everything's working. But for the 10 game sessions that I played, there would be that one game session where there was a huge hang up and then it caused me to crash in the game or something like that. And as a result, I actually turned on the rewind feature back on the Forza Motorsport series because of that, because I wasn't able to predict that, okay, I'm going to make this turn or not, whether because it's just going to lag out and I'm just going to go straight into a wall. It is annoying and it's not perfect. But again, that was less often, but it obviously still stands out as an imperfect experience. Now, gaming directly on the device, you're probably not going to be doing that, but again, for what it's worth, emulation wise, you'll be able to run up to like PS1, some PS2, some GameCube with tweaking, but do not rely on it as a 100% emulator unless you're planning on running a lot older versions of their generations, like the NES, SNES, things like that. But again, you can push up to PS1, PSP, but just don't rely on it as your end-all be-all emulator. But when you are focused again on the streaming software, where it really shines, Xbox, again, this isn't really that great of experience, but it is beta software, but they still promote it as a partner of their program. So it's just a mar on it overall. But again, using GeForce Now, although expensive, I did upgrade to the RTX 4080 so I could get all the ray tracing glory and all that good stuff. You know, I do get it when it's firing on all cylinders, when you're laying in bed with a decently light device that lasts, there's no noise, fan noise, anything like that. You can plug in your headphones if you really want. It's really good. But again, with the home streaming and just variability, it's just not really that great. And it can't be relied on as a dedicated gaming source. If you were going to be using the local streaming, that's an option. There's people that swear by it on the reviews, saying that they use an Xbox Series S or something that's not even plugged into an HDMI port, but they use it directly as a home streaming device for the Logitech G Cloud. So that does make sense for that. I mean, it's obviously a little bit kind of high end, but if you did, say, have an Xbox Series S and then upgrade it later on down the road to the X, but don't want to leave the X on all the time or something like that, you can just dedicate your streaming to the Xbox Series S to your handheld, which is actually pretty good. Again, I can't vouch for the quality of that for the streaming of Xbox and PlayStation because I do not have any consoles. So who's this for? Well, at the end of the day, I would say it's for somebody that has a console that wants to do some in-home streaming similar to the PlayStation Portal, but also wants to be able to do more, such as GeForce Now, Xbox Game Pass streaming, stuff like that. As well, for somebody that has a dedicated PC in-home streaming that wants to do Steam Link or Sunshine, all that good stuff, that's an option too. What I wouldn't recommend it for, though, is for somebody that wants to do strictly GeForce Now or Xbox Game Pass streaming, because those are expensive. With the Xbox Game Pass streaming, you need to be able to afford the Ultimate tier, which is the highest end tier, to get into the game streaming, and even at that, you're limited to just Xbox console quality settings. So sometimes you're limited to 30, sometimes you get 60-30 options, but it does look a lot poorer than the GeForce Now settings and scenarios. So GeForce Now, yes, it's more expensive. For the 4080 whatever subscription, it was $30 for 1 month. Otherwise, I think it's like $170 for 6 months, something like that. And there is free tiers with ad options, but currently there is no available ad supported day passes monthly or 6-month passes available that I could see. Maybe in different regions, that is a possibility. And it's a shame because GeForce Now used to have a free and an ad tier supported where you get like an hour or 3 hours gameplay. It wasn't as good as it was now, so I can see why, yeah, they're charging more. And they probably are putting a lot more R&D into it than Xbox is with their streaming due to their whole server data centers and all that stuff that they support too with their work class stuff. So the GeForce Now, if you're already bought into it, then I guess you could use this as a handheld streaming because it does support it through keyboard and mouse and like HDR, high frame rates, and stuff like that. So if you do have a Apple TV or something that you can play on the TV, that's an option as well. But again, I can't wholeheartedly recommend it because you need to buy the games, then pay the subscription, and then you have to hope that the games that you want to play are actually available on that subscription that you need to buy and maintain to be able to play those games. If you have elsewhere to play them, sure, or if your gaming console or if your PC broke down, something like that, and you couldn't immediately afford the replacement, yeah, I can see a merit for that where, okay, I already have an access to a whole expansive library of Steam games. I'm going to play GeForce Now for like 2 months or something while I kind of scroll away with a little bit extra money to buy a new GPU or CPU or new set of RAM, something like that. That is an option as well. So it is very good at what it does. It's just unfortunately very expensive, which is the NVIDIA way, as we all know. All right, so some good to knows. Until the end of this year, 2025, there is a 1 month included subscription for the GeForce Now performance tiers. They're mid-tier. You don't get the RTX 4080, whatever top tier and all that stuff, but it's not really needed for the handheld alone, and that's simply because you're not going to be able to get HDR above 60 FPS or ultra wide or anything like that. If you do have a TV or something that you plan on playing it on, then sure, you could play that at HDR if you have something to play it on to and at higher frame rates or at 4K, something like that. So if you do have multiple devices, you might want to take advantage of it. If you do want to upgrade during your trial period, I did start my trial on a Friday and I upgraded to the Ultimate tier on a Sunday, and they prorated me 17 days worth of Ultimate time to my Ultimate 30-day subscription. So I got 47 days in total, which was nice. They didn't really have to, I guess, because it was free, but it's nice to know. But again, it's not necessary if you're only playing on the Logitech G Cloud. Now, some good to know, speaking on TV, it does do USB-C out, but only a 1080p 60. It will not do 4K, it will not do above 60, and it does only mirror what's on the device. So it doesn't shut off the device's screen. It will mirror to the output to your glasses. So it will support like XR glasses, but again, it will be playing on the screen as well, so I'll be eating through the battery doing that. And finally, for what it's worth, wired did seem to be kind of on par with wireless for when I was playing on GeForce Now, but your mileage may vary with Steam Link and even with GeForce Now depending on your home network. So if you haven't been here before, pros and cons, I like to try and balance them out. So it has a great IPS display, but it's only 60 Hz, and seeing as GeForce Now and Steam Link do support 120 Hz, it is really kind of missed here, and being able to do it on your ROG Ally or Lenovo Legion Go, something like that, it really would be nice to have a high refresh display here. Now, the ergonomics are amazing, but the potentiometer sticks, meaning they're not Hall effects, so they're going to have some stick drift or kind of not be perfectly center all the time. That is a con, no matter which way you look at it. For speakers, they are really good, no complaints, but they would be even better if they were front firing. Just to have that more directional sound, not needing to turn it up as loud at lower volumes to be able to discern sounds a little bit easier, and potentially not having it disturb neighbors or somebody sitting on the couch next to you as much as it would if you had to crank it up. But again, really no complaints with the audio out of it. It's just, it could be better if they were front firing. Now, as a pro, there are many options to stream from. However, as a con, there isn't really much to play locally. Again, you're going to be limited to like PS1, PSP type emulation, sometimes PS2, but don't kind of hope out for every single game. Now, the price, it did see a permanent decrease by $50 in MSRP, but there is steep competition even just from your phone as well as external controller or controller mount or something like that, or even your TV or your desktop Chromebook, something. So if you're not looking to have a personal handheld device, or you already have an ROG Ally, something like that, I don't really see a reason to get one of these unless you value that silent device with no ventilation system It's plug and play for the most part, and it does have long battery life. If you're looking for that, then yes, I could see somebody picking one of these up for those reasons. Now for pro and con, again, mentioned kind of previously throughout, it does have long battery life, but the standby life is a con. It's just kind of iffy in my experience with Android. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's bad, but that's just Android as a whole, because there is still some Android thing going on in the background. It's not just 100% of the G Cloud launcher system here. And speaking on that G Cloud launcher, I would say it's a pro. It's very professional. It's very well laid out. I did get an early kind of like build launch when I first powered on the system, and then it updated, to like a whole new UI to what they have today, to what's available. And it did seem to be a lot better and a lot more responsive from what would have been quote unquote the early days of the software until what you get now. So if you kind of looked at it before with the software and it seems a little bit older to what you might be seeing now, that might be a reason. I'm not 100% sure when they did that kind of big redesign though. And finally, I guess it is quote unquote normie friendly in the sense that I could just hand it to my wife and she could play a game and honestly not even know that it was streaming through the internet. Case in point, I was playing Spyro Reignited Trilogy, whatever, the remastered stuff. And I was playing it in bed and I just handed it to her. I didn't say anything and she was playing it, just whatever. She handed it back. She was kind of really into it, like playing it for a good 30 minutes before going to bed. And she handed it back and she didn't say anything. There was no, oh, like it glitched out or it did this, it did that. And she was just playing happily, no concerns. So if you're looking for something that's kind of like kid friendly or again, like normie, spouse friendly, not tech educated or not tech literate, whatever you want to call those types of people, if you will, in your life, yeah, it is very friendly to those people. I personally would recommend this to somebody as long as they know what they're getting themselves into and as long as I knew that their internet system was able to handle it, because I didn't want to and will never want to kind of be their like tech support for these devices I recommend. So I would say for that case, it is a solid recommend as long as you know what you're getting into. And hopefully this video kind of helps highlight those differences and key points of who this device is actually fully properly for. Huge shout out to Logitech for sponsoring this overview. Is this going to be your dedicated gaming device? Probably not. It's going to be a supportive device to the console or to your PC. You can, if you really wanted to, buy and maintain a GeForce Now subscription, but then you'd have to buy your own game library as well. I would never recommend it for that alone. That is secondary and a nice perk. It's very nice, it works very well, but it's definitely not worth the cost of what it would take to buy a cheap gaming computer and use that as the streaming source. So if you're looking for something that's going to be nice, lightweight, quiet, has long battery life, it really is worthwhile kind of checking it out. Even if you pick one up and you don't like it, I'm sure they probably have a decent return policy. That would be something to look into your local areas. But if you can get it at a local brick and mortar, kind of demo it if they have some of them out for demo, definitely try checking it out. GeForce Now is really good nowadays. If you're interested in joining us in a podcast format, feel free to join through the Discord links below to the Handhelds United Discord and subsequently the Handhelds Undone podcast. And as always, I hope you all have a great day.